All right there, everyone. President Trump's press conference turns into a Make America Great Again rally. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. If this is your first time here, a very warm welcome to you. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. And so let me invite you to smack that bell and subscribe button. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and it's going to be an absolute privilege to have you as one of them. We're also being occasionally demonetized by YouTube. So if you would, please click on our Patreon link down below and become a monthly supporter of this channel. For as low as just $1 a month, you can get access to exclusive podcast and video content, as well as help us keep giving you conservative analysis of current events going on all over the world. So click on that Patreon link or our PayPal link for just a one-time gift below. All right, so I'm sure many of you got to see the press conference held yesterday with Donald Trump, starting around noontime in the East Coast, where President Trump just squared off with often hostile and belligerent press corps for nearly 90 minutes. It was, in many respects, a press conference like no other, and the discrepancy of opinion and commentary it since elicited could not be wider. Those on the political right, of course, loved it. They love seeing the President of the United States stand up to a thoroughly left-wing liberal corporatist globalist media conglomerate and call them out for their globalist propaganda, calling them fake news and the like. Others on the political left, they see these press conferences, ironically, as evidence that we're living in the midst of the most dangerous threat to democracy that our nation has ever seen from a press conference. But what Trump did, however, is he used the opportunity to highlight the extraordinary success of the candidates that he endorsed in the midterms and touted the massive turnout for the Republican Senate candidates that he held rallies for. Again, we have to remember that the Democrats did absolutely nothing on Election Day that non-incumbent parties haven't already done for over a century. The non-incumbent party, that's the party that doesn't occupy the White House, they tend to win around 30 seats in the House of Representatives and gain a seat or two in the Senate during a midterm election. There's nothing that the Democrats did on Tuesday to add to that expectation. If anything, they significantly underperformed. No blue wave. However, President Trump and the Republicans did in fact do something that very few incumbent parties have been able to do, and that is they represented an incumbent party that actually gained seats in the Senate during a midterm election. It's only happened 5 times in the last 105 years. When all is said and done, it looks like the Republicans have in fact gained 4 or 5 seats in the Senate with some major flips, that is stealing seats away from well-established Democratic senators in Florida, Indiana, Missouri, and we came very, very close to Montana. I thought we'd grab that one. So Trump obviously touted the history-making nature of the elections on the one hand and dismissed the Republicans who lost on the other because by and large they were part of the Never Trumper movement, like Mia Love out in Utah and others. They resisted President Trump's America First nationalist populist agenda, and he simply pointed out in the press conference that those who embraced his nationalist populism tended to win, and those who did not embrace it tended to lose. And then, in many respects, all hell broke loose when he opened it up for questions. Now, I'm sure many of you saw the heated exchange between Trump and CNN's Jim Acosta, who was, by all accounts, very, very rude. A number of people agree with that. He brought up Trump's characterization of the migrant caravan approaching the southern border of the United States as an invasion, which Trump absolutely reaffirmed. This is what you gotta love about Trump. The press is simply not used to Republicans saying what tens of millions of people believe and then be willing to stand by it and defend it. Trump simply refuses to back down. So members of the media often make fools of themselves in response to this kind of backbone. They just don't know how to react to it. And so Acosta, really in the most rude and presumptuous ways, he begins lecturing. He actually begins lecturing the President of the United States on who these migrants really are, right? They're not invaders, sir. They're families and others who are simply looking for political and economic refuge and blah, 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 blah. And Trump shut him down. Trump said, hey, I'm the President of the United States. I know who they are. You let me run the country, I'll let you run CNN, and if you did it well, your ratings would be much higher. I mean, ouch. You know, I'm noticing that that's a sore spot with CNN commentators when you bring up their pathetic ratings. They're dead last among all the cable news networks. They don't break even in the top 10. Ted Koppel brought all this up at a conference recently, that if it weren't for Trump, CNN's ratings would be in the total tank. And the guy, I forget his name, from CNN who was on stage with Koppel, he just really got noticeably flustered and frustrated with the observation. Even Koppel said, all right, well, obviously this is a sensitive subject. So Trump knew right where to hit Acosta. But then Acosta wouldn't give up the microphone. He kept badgering the president with questions, even though Trump said, time to move on, somebody else. So Trump said, enough, sit down, sit down. I mean, Trump is so amazing, the way he shows these liberal left-wing propagandists who's in charge of these press conferences. Just stunning stuff. So you had this young female intern who's been passing the microphone around to the different members of the press. She tries to take the mic from Acosta, and he basically swats her arm away in order to protect the mic. And, you know, that was that. Trump lambasted him. He utterly lambasted him in front of the entire watching world. He said, you know, I'll tell you what, CNN should have been ashamed of itself for ever having you work for them. You're rude. You're a terrible person. You should not be working for CNN. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee, that's Trump's spokesperson, the way you treat her is horrible, and the way you treat other people is horrible. I mean, he tore into him. And in case you haven't heard, just to put a nice exclamation mark on that, the White House has officially suspended Jim Acosta's press pass indefinitely. I don't know if you heard about that or not, but Acosta is now no longer allowed into the White House press corps briefing room. He's been booted out. Again, it's just another example of how Trump is playing by a whole different set of rules here that the press simply doesn't know how to respond to, except by whining. Now, the key to understanding the significance of all this, I think, is to recognize what the press conference is to President Trump. We have to see the press conference. If we want to really understand what happened yesterday, we have to see the press conference the way President Trump sees the press conference. As far as Trump was concerned, that press conference was itself a MAGA rally, a Make America Great Again rally, right? Notice what time of day he held the press conference, right? What was the time of day the conference was held? It started right around noon when Rush Limbaugh comes on the radio to tens of millions of listeners. And it's not just Rush, but a whole host of right-wing talk radio hosts throughout the nation. God bless every single one of them. By holding the press conference midday, Trump knew that it was going to be broadcast live to tens of millions listening into conservative talk radio programs with favorable cheerleading commentary from the talk show hosts. The political effect of these press conferences is obvious. Right-wing opinion leaders across the nation transformed the live feed of the president's press conference into a mass national political rally. You've got to get that. The live coverage of Trump's press conference and his smackdown of these journalists transformed into a bona fide Trump rally. This is what so many in the press just don't seem to get. Let me quote something to you from Michael Goodwin, writing in the New York Post, because I think he's the closest one to get this. Here's what Goodwin writes. In front of cameras and using the assembled press corps as props, Trump conducted a televised revival meeting to remind his supporters that he is still the man that they elected. A revival meeting that uses the press as props. The press conference is a formal occasion for President Trump to express the disdain that his supporters have for the corporatist globalist media. It's an opportunity for soundbite after soundbite that nationalist populists all over the world get to hear and cheer and say amen to. Trump is the populist president, the representative of the nationalist populist revolt, and against whom are we rebelling? The swamp, the establishment. And who's in front of him at this press conference? None other than the establishment media. The brilliance of Trump is that he's able to transform these press conferences into Make America Great Again rallies. Trump was once asked how he won the 2016 election, and his answer was very, very interesting. He answered that he won the election by holding multiple rallies and doing multiple news conferences. News conferences and rallies. Well, at yesterday's news conference, before the eyes of a watching world and tens of millions of cheering nationalist populists, the two became one. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below. Become a monthly supporter of this channel. As you know, we are periodically demonetized by YouTube, and we can really use your help so we can continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.